So we were speaking about the concept of regret. And one of the main differences between the wicked and the righteous is that the righteous have no regrets, and the wicked have many, many regrets all the time. We spoke about how they have many regrets simply, first and foremost, because they know that they're sinning, and they know that they're not supposed to sin, but they keep repeating that trap, like a person that's stuck in the mud, and instead of jumping out of the mud, he fights with it. That's the example we used. And therefore, he constantly is living in the past and regretting, while the righteous knows how to jump out of the mud and not live in the past and really focus on the future. What was. And that's one of the main differences. We delved into that, but I suggest we continue right here where you said, middle of page 278. The Rasha to whom he's good. We're going to develop this idea a little bit more. And again, remind everyone, chapter 11 of the Tanya really focuses on the last two categories of human beings. We said that there are 5 categories, the highest being the complete tzaddik, complete righteous person. The second highest, the incomplete righteous person. The third is the in-betweener, someone who's in between, and he has yet to explain exactly what that is. That's coming up in chapter 12 and then chapter 13. And then the last two are the two that we're speaking about, the incomplete wicked person and the complete wicked person. So now we're talking about the Rasha to whom he's good, which means the incomplete wicked person. And now we're going to speak soon about the Rasha to whom he's evil, which means he's a completely wicked person. Okay, let's continue. The Rasha to whom he's good. Please, Margot, go or anyone else.
I don't know if anybody else wants to read.
I don't know.
No?
Okay.
I'll read.
Okay.
The Rasha to whom is good inhabits a life of sins and regrets, in which the sins are sins and the regrets are regrets. The regrets may be sincere, deep, and very painful indeed. Nevertheless, he remains a Rasha, even at the moment of his remorse.
Right.
But the person who never feels contrition, in whose mind no thoughts of repentance at all ever enter, is called a Rasha to whom is evil, for the evil that is his soul alone remains in him.
Right. Let me just explain this. So it's not that regret is bad, even though it's not really the domain of the righteous, and it's more the domain of the wicked person. But regret can be good as the first step, I would put it that way. And that's really the way Maimonides puts it, right? Maimonides, when he speaks of repentance, he says that there are 4 steps to repentance. I think we've spoken about them, but step number 1 is regret. You first have to regret. You still have to feel bad about what you did. And step number 2 then is coming out of that regret, not staying in the regret mode, which is what the Rasha does. But then you come out and you actually confess. And that's vidui, it's called. You confess the bad thing that you did. Step number 3 is that you take upon yourself a good resolution never to do it again. And step number 4 is when you are tempted to do it again and you don't do it, that means that your teshuvah was complete, your repentance was complete. But again, step number 1 is regret. So it's not that it's bad, but it's living in regret that's bad. And living in regret makes you sin again and again. But that's still good. That's why for the Rasha to whom he's good, or the incomplete Rasha, incomplete wicked person, regret is good. The problem with him is that he stays there. He's stuck there. The complete Rasha, which is what we're transitioning into now, the Rasha to whom is evil, he doesn't even have regret, which is terrible, because that means that he sees sin as something that's permissible. It's almost what the Talmud says, that that the repetition of sin, I'm just trying to remember the exact expression, but the repetition of sin, naaseh lo kehiter, that's the expression. It becomes permissible in a person's eyes, right? You sin once, you feel the regret. Sin the same sin twice, you feel the regret, but a little less. 3rd time, 4th time, 5th time, it becomes not permissible. It's like a part of you. And that's what that's the trap, or the hole that the complete Rasha falls into. He thinks that what he's doing is permissible. It's almost to compare, because we were flooded by so much media these days that shares so many distorted lies. It reminds me of a Joseph Goebbels in Mach Shemo, the propaganda director of Hitler, said famously that you lie once, you lie twice, you lie 3 times, eventually they'll believe your lie. Because they'll see it as truth. Same with sin here. You repeat it, and repeat it, and repeat it, and then you see it as permissible. And that's where the evil Russia is. Now, why are we saying that? Not to put the evil Russia down. Of course, there's no point in all of the, in putting anyone down here. But it's really for us to understand what type of treatment then to give to the complete Russia versus the incomplete Russia. Incomplete Russia doesn't really need much treatment. He needs help in getting out of the regret mode. But at least he has regret. At least he knows right from bad and bad from right. The complete Russia doesn't. And there you need a real reset, real root canal, so to speak. So that's really why this is being mentioned here.
Rabbi.
Yes. Yes, please, Eric.
Sharon.
Yes, Sharon. Yeah, please.
So what if we look at it the other way around? What if we did good and then the good just becomes more natural, right, and easier, and then you don't, is it possible to work that way?
That's very good. Very, very well said. You're right. And in a way it's a problem. It's a good problem to have. But nonetheless, it's, and no pun intended, but it's a problem, because yes, when you repeat good, that becomes also part of you. It becomes so natural that you become good naturally. Goodness is not a big effort for you anymore. But on the other hand, the problem with this is that you become almost stagnant and almost robotic. And in life, we constantly have to grow. There is no word for retirement, we've said in the past. We can't ever retire from doing good. We constantly have to grow. And, you know, living in a state of, okay, robotic goodness, I would call it, is very bad for the soul. The soul is like a flame, remember. It always wants to aspire to new heights, just like a flame that's you know, constantly moving or flickering. So that's the problem on the other side of the picture. But good point, yeah. But better to be stuck in the mode of goodness than to be stuck in the mode of sin, then where it becomes then permissible. Good point.
I have a question.
Yes, please. Yes, Eric.
What are we defining as evil?
How do you define evil? It's a good question. And how do you define good? And it really leads to the question, is good and evil absolute or not? So, look, the only way we can define evil, and we can define bad or good on the other side, is the way God defines it. God is the absolute truth. God is the eternal one, who does not, Ani Hashem lo shiniti, the prophet says, God does not change based on the weather, on the moods, on the age. And therefore, his definition of good is our definition of good. And his definition of evil is our definition of evil. When God says do not murder, doesn't matter how we might justify murder. Murder is murder. You know, that was the problem of the Nazis, I believe, to give an extreme example, but still, they were quite clever. They were producing philosophers and the best musicians and so on. So how could they lead themselves to murder Jews? Because their definition of evil was based not on God, but on the human brain. The human brain can change. Human brain can all of a sudden convince itself that a Jew is like a mosquito, and therefore you can kill it like a mosquito. That's what they did. But if you have God in the picture and God says, do not murder, I don't care what your brain says, then do not murder. So I think the only way we can define evil is the way God defines evil. Otherwise, it does become relative. And that's where danger seeps in. So, you know, God coins many acts as evil. But if we want to generalize it, I think all the 365 negative commandments, there are 365 negative commandments in the Torah out of the 613 that are don'ts. And that's God saying, don't do this because it's not good, it's bad. The layers of evil, absolutely. But at the end of the day, don't do this. And that's our GPS. But really, the plus is, again, that we're anchored in truth and in eternity. Nothing changes when we're anchored in God. And same with good. That's how we define good too. It's very interesting because we use that calculation, that formula, in many other ways, right? Holiness. How do we know if something's holy? The only way we know, how do we know that Temple Mount is holy, for example? Because God made it holy. You know what the good example is? Sinai, Mount Sinai, where we received the Torah. Maybe the most important event in Jewish history. Certainly the most majestic event in Jewish history. No one knows where it is. No one made it holy. Should have been holy. But God didn't make it holy, so we don't make it holy. We don't even know where it is. But God made Temple Mount holy, so we make it, so it's holy in our eyes. And I think that's how we see life altogether. What's good, what's bad, what's evil, what's holy. Depends on how God defines things. So we try to see things in the way through the eyes of God.
I have another question.
Yes, please.
You had said, just so I'm confirming earlier, that it's not good to stay in a state of like robotic goodness because we're human.
Right.
So in some way, does that mean that certain evils are necessary for our own development and growth? Or am I misunderstanding that?
No, you're right. I mean, evil certainly propels goodness to develop itself. But it doesn't have to be evil that propels goodness. You know, to speak of, and it's a good question because I pose this question for the times of the future. Hopefully it will happen very soon when Mashiach comes. We say that when Mashiach comes, when we'll finally be redeemed, there will be no evil in this world. To the point, right, that a wolf will live with the lamb. Even the wolf won't want to attack the lamb. He won't have any evil inclination. So how can we continue to grow? Then maybe we'll be in the state of robotic goodness. But the answer is that no, it doesn't have to be evil propelling goodness to grow. It could be goodness propelling goodness to grow. Small levels of goodness propelling higher levels of goodness to grow. It's just like, I don't know, mathematics, right? You have 2 + 2 = 4, and then you have E = mc squared. If you're stuck in 2 + 2 = 4, you recognize that, oh gosh, I'm not at the right level. And the E = mc squared will propel you to reach to the E = mc squared level. So our goodness will be propelled by goodness itself. That's a good question. Yeah. Okay. I love these questions. That's what it's all about. So please feel free to continue to speak your minds, etc. Otherwise, we can continue. But thank you for this.
It said that the sheep will sleep with the wolf, but I wouldn't want to be the sheep.
Yeah, there was a general in the Israeli army, I think it was Uzi Dayan, who once was asked, why is the IDF continuing to develop itself when Mashiach is coming anytime soon and the sheep will live with the wolf? He said, because when Mashiach comes, I prefer to be the wolf and let my enemy be the sheep. That's it. Yeah. Okay, let's continue. Bottom of 278.
Sure.
A Rasha to whom is evil describes.
The Rasha to whom is evil describes a state of being in which the good in man no longer operates and is no longer a factor within his personality. Such a person never experiences regret over his evil deeds. In him, the evil within has so prevailed over the good that the latter has already departed from within him, encompassing him, so to speak, from above.
Right. Continue with just the following paragraph in this regard.
In this regard, no absolute symmetry exists between the tzaddik to whom is good on one hand and the rasha to whom is evil on the other. As chapter 10 explained, the tzaddik to whom is good is the complete tzaddik, who has succeeded in utterly driving out the evil within him, so that he possesses no evil whatsoever. On the other hand, the complete Rasha cannot in the same way completely banish his godly soul, so that he no longer possesses any good at all.
Right. That's an important point, because we may think that a complete Rasha, a Rasha to whom is evil, the completely wicked person, has completely abolished his good. That's the way it seems like. Again, he has no regrets. He has no conscience whatsoever when it comes to sin. He does it freely and even maybe desiringly. So we may think that he has no soul left. And I've heard the word many times. People say about others that they are soulless, no soul. And this may be true for a very, 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 very small part of society, the Hamas terrorists and the Hitlers of the world, no doubt. But for the most common person, and that's the person that Tanya is speaking about here, everyone has somewhat of a soul left in them, even though they might be completely Rasha. And that's their hope, to really reboot themselves and do teshuvah. But everyone has somewhat of a little soul left in them, even the most wicked. Not the most wicked, not the one that destroys society again. The most wicked towards themselves, or towards society just a little bit, not in drastic ways. They still have a soul. And therefore, what this means, and what Rabbi Steinsaltz here is really aiming at, therefore, we can never forgive, we can never abandon people like that. We can never abolish them. They still have some hope, even though it doesn't seem like it. And we must do everything in our power to awaken that soul in order to really make it shine again. You know, there are many, many, many stories. I'm sure you know many of them. And I encounter stories like that quite often as rabbis, of people you think have left everything. Any morality, forget Judaism, but any morality in the world. All of a sudden, there's a wake-up call and they change their lives. How? Because of that soul that's still there. So there's really no parallel between the complete Rasha and the complete Tzaddik. Complete Tzaddik has abolished evil. There's zero evil in him. The complete Rasha still has a tiny bit of good in him. That's his soul. That's completely dormant, but it's still there. You know, you can look him up, but the head of the neo-Nazi right-wing party in Hungary was a guy named Szegedi. Szegedi's, that's his last name, but Szegedi is spelled with S-Z, the Hungarian way. Szegedi. And he advocated for, with the same, terrible, evil words that the Nazis advocated for, the eradication of the Jew, the final solution, and so on. At one point, to make a long story short, you can look him up. So you could say, oh, this man is completely evil. And at one point, he realized that his grandmother was Jewish. His maternal grandmother was Jewish, which made him Jewish. And he went, on that day, he went to the Chabad rabbi in Budapest. I forget his name. But he knocked at his door. The Chabad rabbi thought he was playing a dirty joke on him. He says, I know you. I've seen you on TV. Get out of here. He says, no, I really want to explore my Judaism. Anyway, long story short, the man completely left his evil ways. He moved to Israel, and today he lives as a proud, observant Jew in the Holy Land. Now, where did that come from? If he was completely evil, then there was no chance of him awakening him, that Judaism within. But there's still that soul. Again, there's many, many stories like that, which again teaches us that even the complete Rasha shouldn't be abandoned, because you never know. That soul might awaken and then change the person completely. It happens, unfortunately, during tough times. Now we see it. A lot of Jews are all of a sudden waking up, which is so beautiful in my eyes. It's really, but it just shows that, some before October 7th, and this is a lesson, really a practical lesson we should learn. And that's why I'm mentioning it. But before October 7th, we were very segregated as Jews. Let's face the truth. And we were so segregated that many parties, especially in Israel, political parties especially, built walls to the point that, they are not so Jewish, or they are not our brothers, or they are. And then October 7th happens. And all of a sudden, we realize that these walls were just plastic walls. And that what we said was so wrong. And that really we're one family. Like I said yesterday, we may be the smallest nation, but we're the biggest family. And all of a sudden, we realize that we have a collective Jewish soul that is burning within. And in many ways, it reminds us that it's the tough times that awaken that soul, but we don't have to wait for those tough times. We can do it today without any challenges. It doesn't have to be the challenges, shouldn't be the challenges that awaken us, awaken that soul. Anyway, that's just as a side note. Let's continue. Unless, again, please feel free to speak your minds. We can continue with the next paragraph on 279. But please feel free to speak your minds.
All right, I have a quick question. Well, maybe it's not a quick question.
But please, Amy,
So Rabbi Brisky, when he was subbing for you, said that some people are pure evil.
right.
That
We said.
seemed,
I mean, look, Adolf Hitler is pure evil. The Hamas terrorists are pure evil. Sure, there are pure evil people in this world. We believe in that, but again, the Tanya is speaking to the common person. Most of us are not. These are small percentages. Now, the question, if we want to develop this idea, the question is, are those pure evil people born pure evil? How do they become pure evil? Or do they not become pure evil because they're born pure evil? So I think that they become pure evil. No one is born evil. There's no evil baby in the world, in any place in the world. But we become pure evil. How so? Mainly by our actions. The more we do bad, the more we become bad. But the more that bad is extreme, the more our bad, we become extremely bad. And, people who cross red lines, like the red lines of do not murder, that we were speaking about, become pure evil. There's almost no point of return for them.
Rabbi, I learned something this week,
Yes.
and this is in Pirkei Avot 4, verse 19. Rabbi Yanai said, basically, there are no answers. And he said it this way: Em beyadenu lo shalvat hashaim vaflo misurei hatzadikim.
Right.
The tranquility of the wicked and the suffering of the righteous is beyond human comprehension.
Right.
The answer is we don't know. That's the best answer.
Right. Yeah. What seems, because the evil seem, I mean, Rashayim, wicked. Again, we don't know what the Pirkei Avot is talking about, completely wicked or not completely wicked. But sometimes you may ask, why does the classic question, why do bad things happen to good people? You can flip that question around and you can ask not just why do bad things happen to good people, why do good things happen to bad people? And that's where sometimes the bad people seem to have tranquility. Why do they deserve tranquility? And that's what the ethics of our fathers speaks about. And then again, the suffering of the righteous. Why do bad things, the suffering, happen to good people, to the righteous? So there are things that are beyond our comprehension. After all, we're finite beings and God is infinite. And finite can't always grasp the infinite. But, what is within our domain is our ability at least to control ourselves and to ensure that the soul is the dominant force within us. And if it's not, then we have to awaken it. And that's one thing. The second thing is within our friends, the people we come in contact with. I think the goal of every one of us is to speak to people's souls, not just to their bodies. You can talk about, you know, what you had for dinner last night and about the basketball scores of last night and who won the UFC fight. Fine, but that's speaking body language. And sometimes it's needed to get to the soul. But every interaction should have some aim to speaking to the soul of the person, so that we have soul to souls interacting, souls interacting with one another, and through that there's more ignition of souls that can transform people from evil to good, from Rasha to Tzaddik. And by doing so, we can also transform the world, because then the light of our souls can begin to shine and truly make a difference.